Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Julie Chan Show, where passion meets purpose. Today, I am joined by Chelsea Austin Montgomery Dubin Vector. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Your book, oh my gosh, sometimes you can't totally see because of the colors, but Inexplicably Me, I love the title. We were just talking about the fonts you chose, how perfect they are. A story of labels, worthiness, and refusing to be boxed in. Wow. And we both live in LA. And so I think, I for sure feel all those things sometimes, and more times than not, probably. But, my first question to you, Chelsea, is at what point did you even realize that there was a worthiness issue or something you wanted to overcome?
Yeah, it's a great question that I ask myself all the time because I have two adoring and doting fathers who've been together this year for 40 years and had such a labor of love in creating me. And so I always wondered, why do I have any question about self-worth? Why isn't it just innate for me when I was surrounded by so much love? And then I realized it took a lot of therapy and thinking, but I realized there was a moment in high school where someone asked me how much it cost for my parents to have me. And I said, well, I don't know. Do you know how much it costs for your parents to have you? And I thought about it for a second and I said, I don't know, but I guess it was expensive. And someone else across the table looked at me and said, well, were you worth it? And I really internalized in that moment this idea of I had to prove that I was worth the time, energy, fallout, whatever it took for my parents to have me. And that I had to prove that worth, prove my value, show people that gay people could have amazing children, and put a lot of pressure on myself to be all of those things. So definitely that's where I think my self-worth question really came into focus.
And isn't that amazing that one person, one conversation, you're in high school, you're sitting across the table at lunch, and that could become, the beginning of what became your book.
Yeah. And I never would have pinned it at the time. I don't think I just internalized it. And then here I am 15 years later.
So, yeah. And so from that moment on, as you went on, to live and school and just discover yourself in life, what became that pronounced conversation for you about worthiness and who you wanted to be so that you were not boxed in?
Absolutely. I think there was a lot of me that felt that my parents were my identity. It wasn't just a part of who I am. It was what made me interesting, and that there wasn't anything else. And as an adult, that got really scary because I thought, this is now not just the only thing that makes me interesting. I have all these other things that I do. And so I really wanted to create a life for myself where I wasn't boxed into that one label, and wanted to bring that notion to other people to feel like they can accept themselves and love themselves. And in doing so, bolster their own self-worth so that we can then go out into the world and love and accept others more, because that's my ultimate mission, if you want to call it that, is to bring that feeling of love to as many people as possible.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure growing up, in a time in a society when, people are becoming more open, but to be the daughter of two gay men must not have always been easy. Play dates, kids can be really judgmental. And when it doesn't look like them, whatever it is, if your lawn were pink and every other is green, right? Like they can't wrap their head around that. So growing up, how was that for you? And talk about that.
Yeah, it was interesting because I grew up in Malibu, California. So this very open, accepting, lovey kind of hippy dippy community. But I was noticed early on that I was different, mostly because other kids would point it out. It
Yeah.
was a lot of, I said I had to kind of come with an instruction manual or an explanation everywhere I was. Well, where's your mom? Why don't you have a mom? And I have to say, kids were more curious, so it never felt hurtful. I was bullied, but not because I had two dads. It was more adults and society overall that ever gave me the sense that I should feel some kind of shame or not enoughness or that we were outsiders. It's little things like I had a aunt who believed that, I'm a creation of a litany of sins, and going through passport control where we were just coming back into the country. And the passport control officer said, you have to choose which one is really your dad because they can't both be your dads. And these were just experiences one after another. And then Proposition 8, which sought to ban gay marriage in California and succeeded at the time, I was 15 years old. And all I knew was I love my parents, they love each other, and they love me. And how can people not understand this and see this and get that love is love? As cliche as that is now, it's just truth. And so it was definitely something growing up where I saw us having to fight against something that felt not feeling misunderstood and feeling that people thought we were different or weird. Or even today, I post a TikTok video that has a baby picture of me with my parents, and it says that it's violating some kind of TikTok, TikTok regulation. So it's just something that you notice. It's very quiet, and sometimes it's loud, but most of the time it's just this very quiet discrimination, this very quiet questioning and reckoning with, how am I different? And why is it okay for people to treat me differently or less than? Yeah.
Right. And that had to have been so hard when your own relative, an aunt, tells you a litany of sins. I mean, really? So, what were some of the things that you learned from your dads? What did they impart on you about how to handle situations like this?
They were pretty incredible, I have to say. Growing up in the 50s and 60s, they were really pioneers and loving each other and being so outwardly open about their love. And so I learned from them to have strength and to really tap into knowing inside that the love we have for each other, no one can take away. And learning to let it roll kind of off my back because I saw them do it. I learned from their example. I learned that you go inside and send white light to those that try to tell you that you're not enough or not good enough or you're wrong. And that was one of the greatest lessons I ever learned from my dad, was when I was bullied or felt discriminated against, to say, it's okay. They just don't understand, and that's okay. And they don't have to understand, but we can still send love out into the world. And so that from my dad is truly the greatest lesson, I think, of my life thus far that I learned.
That is truly incredible. And I mean, when we joined each other on this call, I could just feel your love, and you just exude so much joy. And that obviously comes from deep within, from many years of seeing that. And you talk about love in your book, like love will guide the way. Talk about, how it became your passion to really want to impart this story of letting labels go. And as you were writing the book, what did you learn, or what did you realize you could impart to others on how they could access love?
Labels are such a tricky, complicated subject. And I think we're all kind of afraid of labels, of labeling others incorrectly or feeling mislabeled. But what I've learned is that we can really use our labels to empower us, because I don't see them going anywhere anytime soon. So I think one of the things that we can do is take these labels that people give us and learn to define ourselves in a way that feels comfortable, that we can make peace with. And so whatever that label is, we get to make up our own definition. I say words have so much power, but they're just words. We can decide what they mean to us.
Right.
And so I think labeling is something, like I said, that isn't going anywhere. So to learn how to make yourself at home with your labels and to say, I don't have to accept labels that other people are putting on me. And through the process of writing this book, I wanted to give this gift that my parents gave me to as many people as possible. Without their teachings and how much they've been able to impart on me about self-acceptance and self-love, I don't know that I would be as accepting and loving of others. And so I think that's something that if there was a way for me to somehow give that love to every person through this book, I said, this book is my love letter to the world, to say, no matter how you feel about yourself, no matter how different you might look, if you can start to make peace with that, you can find your beautiful nook within this very complicated world with lots of words and labels. Yeah.
It sounds like what you really learned is living through example. And by watching your two dads and their example, that you carry that forward. And it's the example that you set forth that people will feel. And when they can feel that love and see that joy, then they will hopefully learn and it will fuel them. I also love in your book the how each chapter begins with a quote, and this is one of my favorites. You're in chapter 14. The title is Dreams, Teleprompters, and Marie Antoinette. And the quote is, the core of authenticity is the courage to be imperfect, vulnerable, and to set boundaries. And that's by Brene Brown, who we all love. Setting boundaries. Talk about how we learn to do that.
It's hard. It's something that I continuously am working on and learning about, but it is so important to really preserve yourself, especially in the world we live in today. There's so much conflict. There's so much misunderstanding and frustration that you have to learn to set boundaries in every area of your life. And so the place where I always think we can start to set boundaries is with ourselves. My favorite way to practice this is making a date with yourself, as cheesy as that sounds.
I love it.
Really putting something in your calendar where you say, this is my time, and I'm going to treat that as valuable as I would an appointment with a client or a friend or a family member. That is my time. And it sounds easy, like you throw it in there, of course I'm going to do that. But life starts to happen and people start to call, and then it gets really hard to reserve that time. So I think one of the best ways to start practicing boundaries, and probably the least quote unquote scary way, is to say, let me start with myself, and how can I set boundaries around how I use social media, how I show up for me on a day-to-day basis. And then from there, expand to how you can set boundaries with friends, family, coworkers, all of that good stuff. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And that takes a lot of discipline to be able to shut down the social media, or to be able to choose yourself when your calendar is filling up. I mean, I know I've gone through periods where I, have a plan that, like, from 10 to 12 every day is going to be time with myself, time to get certain tasks done. And because it's just time with myself, I don't even see it there. I just fill it up with other meetings, coffees, whatever needs to get done.
Absolutely. It's one of the most challenging practices to really craft. But when you do accomplish that for the first time and you really take that time, it's so exciting because it is this feeling of rewarding, and it's such an accomplishment that then you go, oh, I can do this. I can do this for myself, so I can do this with other people too. Yeah.
Did you always dream of writing a book? Was that always part of your plan?
No. I I never thought I would write a book. I didn't even think I was a great writer in high school, college. I thought I was good enough.
Mhm.
And I was a theater major and a dance major in college. And so I thought I would be, shuffling off to Buffalo on Broadway right now. And then because one of my fathers, which if you read my book, you'll find out, went away to a federal prison camp my senior year of college, I wanted to come home and be with my family. So after graduating, I came back to LA. I started auditioning part-time and working in real estate part-time. My parents own a real estate company. And I quickly realized that auditioning was not going to be my world. And
Mhm.
so I threw myself into real estate, which, if you ask any of my friends and family, was so not me. It sounded so off the wall and strange, but I was really good at it. However, I quickly became deeply unhappy in my career and was having panic attacks almost every day and coming home crying most nights and feeling like I had to put the essence of who Chelsea is away so that I could accomplish the daily tasks and goals that were required of me. And
Why do you think that was? How did it not align?
I think a lot of it was I put a lot of pressure on myself to be perfect, and I try really hard. I'm an eternal people pleaser, which, Brene Brown calls herself a recovering people pleaser, myself included, or a recovering perfectionist. I think that is something I've struggled with my whole life, and so I would try so hard to make people happy, and it was never enough.
Right.
So, especially in a service industry like real estate, where you're dealing with large sums of money in people's homes, things can get really intense really quickly. And I would take things very personally. And I was allowing myself to really be a punching bag almost every day. My husband and I ran a property management company together, and there was always someone that was upset. And I quickly realized that the pressure of the negotiations and closing deals and trying to take care of people and also take care of myself, I couldn't handle all of it. It's Some people are amazing at that and are brilliant at balancing all of that, but it was not for me and my thin skin and soft heart. So I just decided I had to
Take
get
care
out.
of yourself.
Yeah, I had to take care of myself. And even though I was doing really well, when I left when I was 26 or 27, and by that point I'd already sold $90 million worth of real estate, and I'd done really well, but knew that I couldn't continue. And so I put in a 1 year's notice with my family because it was a family business. And I said, we have 1 year to figure out how we're going to get me out of here. And it was then my husband suggested, why don't you write that book that so many people have told you should write, because you have this interesting story? And I put him off multiple times. And finally, writing this book became my creative outlet during that 1 year of preparing to go out into the world and figuring out what my next step was. And it turned out to be some of the most joyful parts of my day. We're just sitting down and writing and sharing my story. And so that is the really crazy kind of way I got to writing a book.
Well, and it probably also really fueled that 1 year when you still were part of this business that you knew didn't light you up, that didn't serve your purpose and your passion, really, right?
Yeah.
And so you realized that writing the book was probably the way you filled your own cup so that you could do the other parts. So in doing that, I'm always fascinated because I always have these visions of writing a book in the future. But how do you discipline yourself to carve out the time in the day to write, to sit, first of all, and then to write? How many hours a day would you do that?
So it really depended at the beginning. It was almost like my covert self-care. So it was an hour at night, sometimes an hour in the morning before I went to work, or I'd work a half day on a Friday and spend the afternoon writing, or on the weekends. It was wherever I could find an hour here and there. And I didn't have some big plan. I didn't even really know what I was going to be doing with this book. It just started as, this is how I'm giving back to myself. And so I made sure that I carved at least an hour a day, either in the morning or at night, whenever I could just have some time by myself to sit and write as much as I could and figure out, what I was doing. I didn't have a whole plan. I just kind of started. And it felt like my journal. I always say this is kind of really looking at my very personal journal. And it was cathartic and a huge blessing to just carve aside even a little bit of time. And it was a necessity because it was the most myself I felt all day long.
Yeah. I have heard that before. And it sounds like for some people, instead of going to therapy, this becomes their therapy, to write it down and then turn it into a book and share it with the world. And how beautiful is that? So now, after this book is done and you've moved on from your family business, what else are you working on that is lighting up your life and just fueling your own passion?
Yeah, well, I hope that this is the first of many books, because I enjoyed writing this book so much that I hope that I can continue to produce written works. But I also have many different passion projects because I am a highly functioning overachiever, and I have a blog that I still work on, and a podcast that comes out every week, Worthiness Warriors, where I get to talk to all different kinds of people from all different walks of life about how they cultivate self-worth, which I just find fascinating. And I love that. I also have a course called Flip the Script, where I work with people on really, like I said, taking those labels that we are given or that we give to ourselves and making them work for us to help decrease our stress and increase our creativity and productivity and self-care time. And I also am the executive director of Dance in Color, which is a nonprofit organization that supports young dancers of color so that they can continue to follow their dreams and dance as far as it may take them. And so those are all of my passion projects that I love, that I get to explore and learn from every single day.
Absolutely love that you are doing all of those different things and really just juggling all of them, and that you love all of them so much and you get to learn through all of those experiences. A little more on the nonprofit. So you grew up being a dancer and you danced even through college. What, so in your nonprofit, do you bring dancers in? Are you providing dance classes, or is it more of you supporting them through their own dance goals?
So mostly scholars come and contact us, and we first, when we started, we only started in 2020. I grew up dancing with an incredible male dancer who's now off in a company in Russia and very successful. He's the only Black dancer in his company or in any of the companies nearby, and so I was really touched by his story and by the scholarships that he received growing up to make it possible for him to go on to this professional dance career. And so our scholars tend to come to us, or we go out and find them in the world. Ballet programs will come to us as well. And we offer partial, full scholarship tuition that covers tuition, dance apparel, performance fees, sometimes also all different kinds of costume fees and anything that they can really face in terms of costs. We love to cover as much as we can. Right now, we have 3 incredible young scholars. One is dancing in Georgia, and 2 are here in Los Angeles. And they are so inspirational. They work so hard. They love, their passion for dance is infectious. And so it's absolutely a dream that I get to work with 2 of my best friends and my husband and all of these wonderful, incredible people who have stepped up and volunteered and become our organization. It's a huge dream come true for me.
That is beautiful. And so how does your nonprofit, how do you get funds? Like, can people just donate? Do you host a gala? What do you do?
So right now we host usually biannual fundraisers. You can go straight to danceincolor.com and donate. Of course, any time of the year, we will gladly accept your donation. We hope to have galas in the future, but as a burgeoning organization, we need to increase our funding so that we can take on more scholars first and foremost, and then be able to grow our donor base. So right now it's all been personal donations. We've raised almost $40,000 in our first year of operation. We are so grateful to those that have come together to support us and uplift these wonderful dancers. But right now it's all through personal funds and biannual fundraisers. We are now looking to apply to more grants to also open up our coffers to see what we can produce. But really right now it's all through personal funds, and we dream of wonderful galas someday to be able to also showcase our amazing
the dancers. Yeah, you have a whole program ready to go.
Exactly.
I also love the idea of your podcast and it being a worthiness conversation. How long have you been doing that podcast?
So I'm recording season 3 right now. It's been, this year will be 2 years, and it's been so much fun. Yeah, it's been wonderful. Yeah.
So great. So great. Thank you so much. It's been so much fun to be with you today and to hear all about your journey, how this book came about. For anyone who wants to get it, Inexplicably Me, a story of labels, worthiness, and refusing to be boxed in. And don't we all want those lessons?
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you all for joining the Julie Chan Show, where passion meets purpose. If you know somebody who is following their passion and purpose and lighting up the world with all that they bring, we want to hear from them and we want to interview them. Have a great day.
This broadcast is brought to you by WINJECT Studios. We are an all-in-one educational platform for podcasters that revolutionizes how hosts leverage content to increase engagement with listeners, downloads, and income. We come together to focus on community, collaboration, and collective impact. For more information on how you can interact directly with our hosts, access exclusive live content with offers you can't get anywhere else from our official partners, join our purpose-driven community by visiting www.winject.com. If you're ready to build a career doing what you love, then we're ready to see you there.